Hello and welcome back to On This Day in History. Today is April 16th and I hope you're ready for another interesting episode. On this day in 1520, citizens of Toledo, Castile opposed the rule of the foreign-born Charles I and revolted when the royal government attempted to unseat radical city councillors. The Kingdom of Castile, or Castile however you pronounce it, was a large and powerful state of the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages. The name comes from the host of castles constructed in the region. The revolt was known as the Revolt of Comuneros, and this was an uprising by the citizens of Castile against the rule of Charles I and his administration between 1520 and 1521. At its height, the rebels controlled the heart of Castile, ruling the cities of Valladolid, Tordesillas and Toledo. On this day in 1847, during the New Zealand Wars, a minor Maori chief was accidentally shot by a junior British Army officer in the settlement of Wanganui on New Zealand's North Island, triggering the Wanganui Campaign. The Wanganui Campaign was a brief round of hostilities in the North Island of New Zealand as the indigenous Maori fought British settlers and military forces in 1847. On this day in 1912, the American pilot Harriet Quimby became the first woman to fly across the English Channel. Harriet Quimby was also the first woman in the United States to receive a pilot certificate issued to her by the Aero Club of America. Although Quimby lived only to the age of 37, she was a big influence to the role of women in aviation. She died on July 1st, 1912, after the aircraft she was in at 1,000 feet pitched forward unexpectedly for reasons still unknown, throwing her from the aircraft, where she fell to her death. On this day in 1963, in response to an open letter written by a white clergyman, Martin Luther King Jr. wrote the letter from Birmingham jail in defense of strategy of non-violent resistance against racism. The initial open letter written by the white clergyman was called A Call for Unity and was an open letter published in Birmingham, Alabama, by 8 local white clergymen in response to civil rights demonstrations taking place in the area at the time. In the letter, they took issue with the events directed and led in part by outsiders, and this outsider was a thinly veiled reference to Martin Luther King Jr. The letter from Birmingham jail was an open letter written by Martin Luther King, and it says that people have a moral responsibility to break unjust laws and to take direct action, rather than waiting potentially forever for justice to come through the courts. And finally, last but not least, on this day in 2001, India and Bangladesh began a 6-day conflict over their disputed border, which ended in a stalemate. These clashes took place between the Bangladesh Rifles, which are a paramilitary force responsible for the border security of Bangladesh, and the Indian Border Security Force. And that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave any feedback in the comments, and if you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe.